She was about to leave in tears when a voice said, "Don't move, you're with me." The invisible guest tears became her greatest blessing. The crystal chandeliers of the Crystal Pavilion cast dancing reflections across the polished marble floor, creating patterns that looked like ocean waves. Sienna Blake stood near the towering ice sculpture of a dolphin, clutching her small clutch purse like a lifeline. The charity gala for ocean conservation hummed with energy around her, but she felt like a ghost drifting through a world where she didn't belong. She adjusted the strap of her emerald green dress for what felt like the 100th time. The dress was beautiful, a vintage find from a consignment shop that she'd carefully altered herself. But surrounded by women in designer gowns with price tags that could cover her rent for a year, Sienna felt like a child playing dress-up in her mother's clothes. The invitation had come through her boss at Henderson Interior Design, where Sienna worked as a junior designer. Mrs. Henderson couldn't attend and had offered Sienna the ticket, calling it a networking opportunity. But 3 hours into the evening, Sienna had learned what networking really meant in this world. It meant having the right last name, the right connections, the right bank account. She watched couples glide across the dance floor, their movements fluid and confident. The orchestra played something classical that she couldn't name, though everyone else seemed to recognize it immediately. Waiters in crisp white jackets circulated with champagne and canapes that looked like tiny works of art. Sienna reached for a glass of champagne from a passing tray, hoping the alcohol might dull the sharp edge of her loneliness. That's when she heard the laugh, rich, confident, familiar. Her stomach dropped as she turned toward the sound. There, standing near the dessert table with his arm around a blonde woman dripping in diamonds, was Connor Hayes, her ex-boyfriend, the man who had broken up with her 6 months ago, claiming he needed to focus on his career, the man who had apparently needed to focus on finding someone with a trust fund. Connor's eyes met hers across the room, and for a moment, surprise flickered across his handsome face. Then the blonde woman noticed where he was looking, and her perfectly shaped eyebrows rose in question. Sienna turned away quickly, her heart pounding. She needed air. She needed to leave. She needed to be anywhere but here. But before she could take a step, she heard footsteps approaching and then Connor's voice, smooth as always. "Sienna? I didn't expect to see you here." She forced herself to turn around, painting on a smile that felt like it might crack her face. "Connor. Hello." The blonde woman had followed him, her arm now possessively linked through his. Up close, she was even more intimidating. Perfect skin, perfect hair, perfect everything. "This is Arabella Huntington," Connor said, and Sienna didn't miss the pride in his voice. "Bella, this is Sienna Blake. We used to date." "How nice," Arabella said, her tone suggesting it was anything but. Her eyes traveled down Sienna's dress with the precision of a jeweler examining a questionable stone. "That's a lovely dress, very vintage." The word hung in the air like an insult wrapped in a compliment. "Thank you," Sienna managed, her throat tight. "Are you here with someone?" Connor asked, and there was something in his voice that made Sienna's skin prickle. Was it concern? Or was he hoping she was alone, that she was still struggling while he'd moved up in the world? "I'm here with my firm," Sienna said, keeping her voice steady. "We designed the event space." It was a lie. Henderson Interior Design had submitted a proposal for the event design but lost to a more established firm. But Connor didn't need to know that. "How wonderful," Arabella said, though her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Connor and I are here as donors. The Huntington Foundation is the main sponsor for tonight's cause." "Of course they were. Connor's been telling me about his new position at Huntington Enterprises," Arabella continued, moving closer to him. "Vice President of Development. Quite impressive for someone so young." Sienna's stomach twisted. Connor had gotten that job through Arabella's family connections. The same career he'd claimed he needed to focus on when he broke her heart. I should get back, Sienna said, desperate to escape before the tears burning behind her eyes could spill over. Oh, don't rush off, Arabella said, and now her smile had a sharp edge. We should catch up. Connor has told me so much about you, about how you worked at that little coffee shop when you were together, trying to make ends meet while pursuing your design dreams. Each word was carefully chosen to humiliate. Sienna could see several nearby guests turning to listen, their interest piqued by the drama unfolding. Those were good times, Connor said, but his voice lacked conviction. He looked uncomfortable now, as if he was realizing that his girlfriend's cattiness was reflecting poorly on him. I'm sure they were, Arabella continued, warming to her audience. There's something charming about ambition, even when it's unrealistic. Not everyone can succeed in competitive industries. Some people are better suited for simpler paths. The blood drained from Sienna's face. Around them, she could hear whispers starting. Someone laughed softly. A woman in a silver gown raised her phone, and Sienna realized with horror that she might be recording this. Bella, that's enough, Connor said, but his protest was weak, too late. I'm just being honest, Arabella said, her blue eyes wide with false innocence. It's important to recognize one's limitations. Not everyone is meant for this world. She gestured around the glittering ballroom as if to emphasize her point. Sienna's hands trembled. The champagne glass shook, and she set it down on a nearby table before she could drop it. She could feel the tears coming now, hot and unstoppable. The room seemed to close in around her, all those perfect faces watching her humiliation with varying degrees of amusement and pity. She turned to leave, no longer caring about dignity or appearances. She just needed to get out, to escape before she completely fell apart in front of these people. She had taken 3 steps toward the exit when a voice stopped her cold. Don't move. The command was quiet but carried such authority that Sienna froze instinctively. Then the voice continued, closer now, right behind her. You're with me. A warm hand touched the small of her back, gentle but unmistakably possessive. Sienna turned her head slightly and found herself looking into the most striking gray eyes she'd ever seen. The man standing beside her was tall, easily over 6 feet, with dark hair that curled slightly at his collar and a face that belonged on magazine covers. But it was more than his looks that made her breath catch. It was the way he carried himself, the quiet confidence that radiated from him like heat. This was someone who commanded rooms without raising his voice, who made decisions that changed lives. He was looking at Arabella and Connor with an expression of polite disdain, as if they were children who had misbehaved at an adult gathering. Is there a problem here? He asked, his tone making it clear that if there was a problem, it was theirs, not his. Arabella's face had gone pale. Mr. Pierce, she stammered, I didn't realize you were here. Clearly, he said. The single word carried volumes of judgment. Connor looked like he wanted to disappear into the marble floor. Sir, we were just harassing my companion, Nathaniel Pierce finished, his hand still resting protectively on Sienna's back. I believe you were suggesting she didn't belong here, which is interesting, considering she was invited as my guest. Sienna's mind reeled. She had no idea who this man was, but clearly everyone else did. The crowd that had gathered to watch her humiliation now looked at her with new interest, their expressions shifting from mockery to calculation. We didn't know, Arabella said, her earlier confidence crumbling. We thought she was alone. She's not, Nathaniel said simply. Then he turned to Sienna, and his expression softened. Are you all right? She nodded, not trusting her voice. Good, he said. Then let's not waste another moment on people who mistake cruelty for sophistication. He guided her away from Connor and Arabella, away from the watching crowd, his hand never leaving her back. As they walked, Sienna became aware of the whispers following them, but they sounded different now. Respectful, curious, impressed. Thank you, she managed when they were out of earshot. "Don't thank me yet," Nathaniel said, and there was a hint of amusement in his voice. "I've just made you the most interesting person at this party. The next hour is going to be complicated." More complicated than what just happened? He smiled, and the expression transformed his serious face into something warm and almost boyish. "Much more. But I promise you something, Sienna Blake." "You know my name?" "I heard your ex say it. And yes, I promise you this. By the time this evening is over, you'll leave here knowing exactly how much you belong in any room you choose to." Enter. The Midnight Promise. Nathaniel Pierce guided Sienna through the ballroom with the easy confidence of someone who had never doubted his place in the world. People parted before them like water, some nodding respectfully, others staring with undisguised curiosity. Sienna felt like she'd stepped into someone else's life, a story where she was suddenly the leading lady instead of a background extra. They stopped at a quieter section of the venue, near floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city lights. The orchestra's music was softer here, allowing for conversation without shouting. "Breathe," Nathaniel said gently, turning to face her fully. "You look like you're about to bolt." Sienna realized she was holding her breath and released it in a shaky exhale. "I don't understand what just happened." "I intervened in a situation that required intervention," he said simply. "And now we're going to have a conversation like two normal people at a party. But I don't know you, and you don't know me. Why would you do that?" Nathaniel was quiet for a moment, his gray eyes studying her face with an intensity that made her feel seen in a way she'd never experienced before. "Do you really want to know?" "Yes, because I watched you standing alone for 20 minutes, trying to be invisible, and I recognized the look in your eyes. I've been that person, believe it or not. The one who doesn't quite fit, who has to work 3 times harder to prove they belong." He paused. "And because when that blonde harpy started tearing you down, you didn't fight back with cruelty. You just wanted to leave with your dignity. That told me everything I needed to know about your character." Sienna felt tears prick her eyes again, but for a different reason now. "I was going to cry in my car." "Perfectly acceptable plan," Nathaniel said with a slight smile. "But I think this one might be better." "What is this plan exactly?" "We stay for another hour. We talk, we laugh, we let those people see that you're not alone and that you're interesting enough to hold the attention of someone they all want to. Impress." His expression became more serious. "But more importantly, we have an honest conversation, and you decide if you want my help or if you'd rather I call you a car and we part as friendly strangers." "Help with what?" "With making sure Connor Hayes and Arabella Huntington learn an important lesson about underestimating people, and with making sure you walk out of here tonight feeling like the talented, worthy person you actually are." Sienna's heart was racing. This was insane. She didn't know this man. For all she knew, he could be dangerous or manipulative or have his own agenda that had nothing to do with helping her, but something in his eyes told her he was being sincere. And the part of her that had been beaten down all evening, that had absorbed insult after insult, desperately wanted to believe that someone saw her value. "Who are you, really?" she asked. "Nathaniel Pierce. I run Pierce Technologies. We develop clean energy solutions and sustainable infrastructure." He said it matter-of-factly, without the boastfulness she'd heard from so many people tonight. "I'm here tonight because my company is partnering with the Ocean Conservation Foundation on a new marine protection initiative. Pierce Technologies." Even Sienna, who didn't follow business news, had heard that name. They were one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country, valued in the billions. "And you just happened to notice me?" she asked skeptically. "I noticed you the moment I walked in," Nathaniel admitted. "You were standing by that ice dolphin, looking at it like you were mentally redesigning the entire event space. Your hands were actually moving, like you were sketching in the air. It was captivating." Sienna blinked. She had been doing exactly that, critiquing the layout and thinking about how she would have designed the flow differently. She hadn't realized anyone was watching. I'm an interior designer, she said, or trying to be. Right now, I'm mostly getting coffee and making copies. Everyone starts somewhere, Nathaniel said. I started in a garage with a used laptop and an idea that everyone said would fail. But you made it work. Eventually, after hundreds of failures. And thousands of hours of work. He gestured toward the ballroom. All these people in their expensive clothes? Most of them inherited their money and their connections. They didn't build anything. They don't understand what it takes to create something from nothing. You sound like you resent them. Sometimes, he admitted, but mostly I just find them boring. They all say the same things, go to the same parties, marry each other's siblings. It's like living in a very gilded cage. Sienna found herself smiling despite everything. Poor billionaire, trapped in his mansion. Nathaniel laughed, and the sound was genuine and warm. Point taken. I'm not claiming my life is hard, just that it's lonely sometimes, being surrounded by people who only see your bank account. Is that why you're really helping me? Because you're lonely? Maybe partly, he said honestly, but also because I genuinely believe you're talented and deserve better than how you were treated tonight, and because I have an idea. That sounds ominous. It's not. Listen, I need an interior designer for a project. My new headquarters building. It's a major job, probably the biggest thing you've ever worked on. Normally, my team would hire some established firm with a boring portfolio. But I've been thinking we need fresh perspectives. Someone who actually understands sustainable design and creative space utilization. Sienna's heart started pounding. You can't be serious. I'm always serious about business. Come to my office. Next week, bring your portfolio. Show me what you can do. If your work is as good as I think it is, the job is yours. Just like that. Just like that. He held up a hand. But understand this. I'm not offering this out of pity. If you can't deliver, I'll fire you immediately. I won't let sentiment interfere with my company's success. But I have a feeling you're exactly the kind of hungry, creative talent that produces extraordinary work. Sienna's mind was spinning. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. But Nathaniel was pulling out a business card, writing something on the back. My private number, he said, handing it to her. Call my assistant tomorrow. Set up a meeting for Wednesday. Before Sienna could respond, she saw Arabella approaching, Connor trailing behind her, looking miserable. Mr. Pierce, Arabella said, her voice honey-sweet now. I want to apologize for earlier. I didn't realize Sienna was your guest. It was a simple misunderstanding. Nathaniel's expression could have frozen water. It wasn't a misunderstanding. Ms. Huntington, it was cruelty. You deliberately tried to humiliate someone you perceived as weaker than you, and you did it in front of dozens of witnesses. Arabella's face flushed. I was just joking. No, you weren't. And here's the thing about cruelty. It reveals character. Your foundation is sponsoring this event, but I'm the one providing the actual technology that will make a difference. And I'm withdrawing Pierce Technologies from partnership with Huntington Foundation, effective immediately. Arabella's face went white. You can't. I can, and I am. You'll receive official notification on Monday. I suggest you learn something. From tonight, being born wealthy doesn't give you the right to treat people like they're beneath you. He turned to Connor, who looked like he wanted to disappear. And you. You stood there and let your girlfriend attack someone you claim to have, cared about. That makes you worse than she is, because you know better and you did nothing. Then Nathaniel took Sienna's hand and led her away, leaving Arabella and Connor standing in shocked silence. That was Sienna started. Necessary, Nathaniel finished. People like that only learn through consequences. As they walked, Sienna noticed something had changed in how people looked at her. There was respect now, curiosity. She was no longer invisible. Dance with me, Nathaniel said suddenly, leading her toward the dance floor. I'm not very good at, neither am I, he admitted, but we should end this evening properly." The orchestra was playing something slow and romantic. Nathaniel's hand settled on her waist, and she placed her hand on his shoulder. They moved together, and somehow it didn't matter that she was self-conscious or that she'd never learned proper ballroom dancing. "Thank you," Sienna said softly, "for everything tonight." "The night's not over yet," Nathaniel said, and there was something in his voice that made her look up at him. Their eyes met, and Sienna felt that electric connection again, stronger now. His hand tightened slightly on her waist. "Sienna," he said quietly, "I want to be honest with you about something." "What?" "I didn't intervene tonight just because I felt bad for you. I intervened because from the moment I saw you, I couldn't look away. And I'd very much like to get to know you better, job opportunity aside." Sienna's breath caught. "You're asking me out." "I'm saying that I'm hoping our meeting next Wednesday leads to more than just a business relationship. If you're interested." She should say no. This was too much, too fast. But looking into his eyes, she saw something that matched what she was feeling. Possibility, connection, hope. "I'm interested," she whispered. Nathaniel smiled, and in that moment, surrounded by music and light and the man who had appeared when she needed him most, Sienna felt something shift inside her. This was the beginning of something extraordinary. 6 months later, Sienna stood in the lobby of Pierce Technologies' new headquarters, looking at the space she had designed. Floor-to-ceiling windows let in natural light. Living walls of plants purified the air. Every detail reflected her vision of bringing nature and technology together. Behind her, Nathaniel wrapped his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. "You did it," he murmured. "We did it," she corrected, leaning back against him. The building had been featured in architectural magazines. Her career had taken off beyond her wildest dreams. But more importantly, she had found someone who saw her worth even when she couldn't see it herself. "Remember that night at the gala?" Nathaniel asked. "When you saved me from crying in my car? When you let me be brave enough to approach the most interesting person in the room," he corrected. "Best decision I ever made." Sienna turned in his arms to face him. "Thank you for seeing me." "Thank you for letting me," he said, and kissed her. Outside the windows, the city stretched before them, full of possibility and promise. And Sienna finally understood what belonging felt like. It wasn't about money or status or fitting into someone else's world. It was about finding the person who saw your true self and chose to stand beside you. She was exactly where she was meant to be.